Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
We need to turn the microphone on before we start talking. Hello and welcome to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Brendan Labarre, and the Winnipeg Jets have defeated the Colorado Avalanche by a score of 3-0. Connor Hellebuyck with his second shutout over the Colorado Avalanche this season, this time in a very, very nice, almost convincing team fashion. But before you get that, let me tell you about the flagship show of the Game Over Network channel. Shift into hyperdrive and get ready to have some fun with your new source for all the biggest stories in hockey, bringing a unique style of broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. Hyperdrive Hockey combines top-tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a damn fun atmosphere that'll drive debate, make you think, and more. Join Max, Daphne, and Kevin. I don't know why I'm just cutting off the second syllable of all their names. Every Tuesday and Wednesday for your fill in the hockey world. Watch on YouTube on the Game Over Network channel or subscribe on your favorite podcast network like Amazon, whatever you usually listen to on. All right, excellent. So today on this Game Over Network, before we get going, just make sure that you've liked and subscribed to the Game Over Network channel. Just a free and easy way to support us here at Game Over Winnipeg, trying to help rebuild some local sports coverage. Let's go like this a little bit. Perfect. Okay. So before what we're gonna do, we're going to run down the Colorado Avalanche game. Then I want to kind of talk about things, some more specific things in the second period. About some tactics, some things I like, some things I didn't like from their game. And then we're going to be doing our a few nights ago against Nashville. We did the forwards grades for the first half of the season. Here I have the defenseman grades for the first half of the season, and we'll see how they do. Goalies are in there too, but it's two guys. It's not too much. Anyways, so with the Winnipeg Jets this game, they come out flying. Nikolai Ehlers scores a goal in the first minute and 8 seconds. And on that Ehlers goal, Ehlers showed off some of his very, very special skills. And I think it all started with a line change by Scott Arniel. And I think it was very fitting that this was the first goal of the game, because the way this starts is it starts with Alex Iafallo on the boards in his own end. And the playing along the boards becomes a major theme in this hockey game. As he wins a battle along the boards, it kind of squirts out to Dylan Samberg. Dylan Samberg's able to come through the zone. It catches Nikolai Ehlers behind him, which really pauses Devon Toews. Devon Toews kind of has to take a step back, and that gives Nikolai Ehlers enough advantage with his speed to kind of rush to him. And then you see as he enters between the kind of danger area, the ice between the blue line and the ringette line or top of the circles, that's where the LA Kings really hemmed them in yesterday. And you see Nikolai Ehlers take full advantage. Makar kind of backs off of him, and Nikolai Ehlers is able to just shoot the puck top corner, a perfect shot. And it was really nice to see that after Nikolai Ehlers really struggled yesterday, he comes out just straight buzzing against the team where they're going to give you more in that area, that high ice area of the offensive zone, and he's a player who can really take advantage of it. Oh, and by the way, we have the chat box up here. If you want to join in on the show, kind of have your input on what we're talking about, you can type in and you can be appearing right on the screen. Look at that. Ooh. So yeah, just right off the stop, the Jets are up 1-0, and when you kind of score a goal early, it gives you that sort of confidence, and the other team just can't sit back. It allows you to play a little bit more free, just because you have that ability to kind of make sure that, or not make sure, but know that they're not going to be playing super on their heels all the time. And then the Winnipeg Jets did the exact opposite. They had a few turnovers at the offensive blue line, and maybe that's okay against the LA Kings, but this is a team where you really got to clamp down on. I remember Velarde had one that was pretty tough, but against this team specifically, you need to be making sure that you don't have turnovers at offensive zone turnover at the offensive blue line, because they just have so many weapons with so much speed, like McKinnon, Rantanen, that can really take advantage of you. And then a player I really like, Dylan Coghlan, he takes a really stupid penalty, and the only two penalties in this game were kind of dumb. He's turning, just whacks a guy with his stick, just no, not caring about where his stick is, throwing it around, flicking it, hits a guy in the stick, and that's just another thing you can't do against this team. That power play last year when they had Nichushkin and Lehkonen in the slot just causing havoc, and the three guys, Rantanen, Makar, and McKinnon, were on the top of the umbrella, just ate the Jets alive, and that's something that we couldn't have. But once again, Dylan Sandberg really proving his worth. He comes back in, and his competitiveness on the PK is just such black and white compared to where the Winnipeg Jets were when he was out of the lineup. The PK, if you can say anything, has been an Achilles heel of the Winnipeg Jets this season. Their penalty kill has not been great, and it was really nice to see against one of the best power plays in the league that the Winnipeg Jets are able to kill it off with almost ease. Like, there were some like tough spots there when McKinnon has the puck. It's always scary, but it was pretty dang good. And then we noticed like another thing that the Winnipeg Jets were doing, and they were kind of lining up their forwards at the offensive blue line. Once again, I played pretty high level ball hockey. That's something you do in ball hockey just because like it's on the power play. You can just kind of throw it up there. And it really looked like to me that the Winnipeg Jets were trying to take the neutral zone out of the game. They would get guys on the offensive zone blue line, and they would try to bank it kind of around guys that do straight passes. And at first, it was starting to get really tough to watch because the Avalanche would just pick off a few. Sometimes the Winnipeg Jets would be able to have their sticks out and they deflect it into the zone, but then they don't have any speed going in on the forecheck. And you were just wondering if maybe that would bite them in the butt because the Avs transition game is so good with guys like Makar, Taze, Samuel Girard, that you can't afford to just take the neutral zone out of the game to allow them to be on that really good transition game that the Avs have. But as it went on, it just kind of seemed a little bit more less apparent that that was a problem. But overall, the first period was pretty good. The Avs as a team, they'll always have these pushes with their top guys out there, Makar, McKinnon, Rantanen, and you're not going to be able to stop them. Those are just players who the Jets don't have, like forwards like this, players like this, who they just exert their will on the game. And just the way that they're out there and able to take control of the game for stretches at a time is just something where the Winnipeg Jets aren't going to be able to do that in the same way, and you're going to have to withhold it. And you're lucky that you have a guy like Connor Hellebuck able to kind of help you out in that way. In the second period, the stretch passes were still kind of going. They're still having a great time with that. But there was a kind of in the middle of this period, there was kind of a moment where you're watching it and the Winnipeg Jets are kind of going punch for punch with this Avalanche transition game and kind of getting more out of them than the Avalanche were able to, getting more offensive chances. And while there weren't too many offensive chances in this kind of stretch, you kind of felt like, okay, the Winnipeg Jets last year in the playoffs, they weren't able to skate with this team. And this game, it kind of felt like they were able to, whether it was just by slowing the game down enough or by just being able to like move the puck around enough. Being on a homestand for this long has definitely helped. You felt like the Winnipeg Jets were more inept to kind of be with this team and skate with this team and play against this team. And then one of these stretch passes we've been talking about this whole time, Kyle Connor gets a pass, but the puck's wobbling on him. He's not able to get a clear shot off. It just kind of goes off his heel right into the pad of Mackenzie Blackwood. And then you're kind of thinking like, oh, have we finally gotten these stretch passes worked out? They got a couple of other stretch passes like that to work as well. So it's like, okay, they're doing a good job of taking the neutral zone out of the game. And you really felt like there weren't those neutral zone plays where there's these big turnovers that kind of led to big rushes the other way. It felt more controlled than the playoffs did last year. And then the Winnipeg Jets, they take a 2-0 lead. Mark Scheifele scores. What happens on this one? Josh Morrissey gets the puck into the offensive zone on a entry. He just curls around the net. He's looking for Kyle Connor. Pass it in front. Morrissey, Scheifele's kind of following Morrissey in this kind of slow attempt. Morrissey's able to try to get to Connor. It kind of wobbles in the air, doesn't quite get to him, but it goes to Mark Scheifele, who's able to put it in the back of the net. And I don't know if we're counting at home, but that's 2 5-on-5 goals. They didn't have any 5-on-5 goals against LA. And while the power play has been so good, getting offense at 5-on-5 has been seemingly kind of over the past 2 years been one of the Jets' weaknesses as well. And then going to the third period, the Winnipeg Jets go into a 1-2-2. They are really trying to shut it down. They're keeping up the pace, and you don't feel those big offensive pushes that the Colorado Avalanche are capable of. They didn't feel as like they were exerting their will on the game. It felt like the Winnipeg Jets had a lot of control in it. And then Kyle Connor, with a very similar penalty to Dylan Coghlan, just turning, his stick just flies out in the air, whacks guy in the face. That's my lady bing winner. He just hits the guy in the face, and you're like, Kyle, not your best game tonight, but you can't be doing that against this power play. And then they kill it off again. And then they come out, and what really cemented this win for me is when, after the penalty kill, Kyle Connor comes out of the box, joins his line mates of Velarde and Scheifele, and just gives it to the Avalanche. They have such a strong shift. They are holding in the zone, and you're like, oh, is this like our version of the Avalanche being able to hold in their zone? Not quite as powerful, but they were able to hold in there for a little bit. They didn't get very big chances, but as a kind of a line that gets told they're awful defensively from the fans sometimes, seeing that them being able to just hold the puck in the offensive zone, that is a type of defense. But just holding the puck in the offensive zone, moving it around, that's a way to defend, because like my dad used to always say, if the puck's not in our zone, they can't score. And that's something I'm sure I'll be hearing about from saying on the show, because he said that like every 5 minutes when he used to coach me as a young lad. And then there was one really nice sequence I just want to point out. It was especially led by Nino Niederreiter, where Nino Niederreiter comes back, and him and Scheifele, they're like, keep on passing it back to the defense, just killing off time, doing stuff at 5-on-5, making these nice 4-foot passes. And I was looking at that, and I'm like, that's very much what the Jets were doing at the beginning of this season. And that was such a big part of their identity in the 15-1 stretch. And it was nice to see just even a glimpse of that, being like, okay, it seems like while they're at home on the practice, being able to practice, they're able to kind of get that back a little bit, get that more control in their game that they've been missing for quite a while. And then Ehlers scores another goal to kind of cap off the night, make it a 3-0 game. He had a great game today. He was absolutely buzzing. It was nice to see him get rewarded again. So that was kind of the game. There was no real drama. It really felt like the Jets had a lot of control in this one. There was a few like stretches with the Avalanche that where they took control, but that's going to happen. They have like some of the best players in the league, and that's just kind of how it's going to go down sometimes. So with that, let's hop into the second period. But first, let me tell you about how you can support the channel. There's a few easy ways. One of them, just liking and subscribing, free and easy, convenient, is right here. You're already on YouTube. You can just go down there, click it. Unless you're on the podcast version of this episode, then you can also subscribe on there too. So many different ways to support us. Then you can join our Discord. Our Discord, we're always chatting there. That's how we communicate. That's how we get work updates. So you can go in there, and we also have channels to just talk about games and things like that. And then there's the Patreon. The Patreon has multiple tiers. There are free tiers, which get you access to some exclusive stuff from the people who work for us here at the Game Over Network. So let's go into the second period here. And some things I want to talk about were just the series of games that they've played against the Colorado Avalanche. And the one against the Avs on New Year's Eve, that might have been one of the best games the Jets have played. They seem like they really are trying to get up for these games against the Avs, because I think that's who they measure themselves against. And you could really see that when the last time they were playing, and Comrie got the start the other half of the back-to-back. And this time, the Hellebuck and the I don't know who made that decision, maybe Arneal, but they really made a point to have Hellebuck start the second half of the back-to-back, which I don't think he's done in years, which is just a way to show that he's really trying to make a point of these Colorado games, whether it's Scott Arneal, whether it's Connor Hellebuck, whether it's the leadership group of the Jets. They count these ones more than they count games against LA. And with that one, they were coming off of travel. They played it in Winnipeg on the Monday night, flew out to Colorado for that New Year's Eve game, and you could tell by the third period they were gassed. In that first game, that 1-0 game, the Winnipeg Jets, they were able to kind of play like they did today. They got out to an early lead. They were doing a great job, but in the third period, it looked like an absolute fire drill. It looked like Connor Hellebuck was able to make all the saves, but McKinnon was running around. People were running around. It was awful. The Winnipeg Jets just could not hold the zone, and I think they took lessons from that. They took things that kind of stopped them from succeeding in that third period. The things that were the maybes, they wanted to make them no's or yeses, depending on how you want it to think about it. They want to say, okay, we don't want to put things up to chance. We know we have Connor Hellebuck, but we don't want to give them that chances. So they made some changes, and you could definitely see it in the way they were defending. Their 1-2-2 kind of neutral zone defense, it was almost designed, and you can tell the way the third period kind of went out. It was designed to some neutral zone traps are designed to kind of get people to dump it in so you can do a quick 1 and out. what the Winnipeg Jets were really successful at today is they were really trying to kind of get into the zone and just make sure the Avs were pushed against the boards. They wanted to take the fight out of the middle of the ice and just get against the boards, turn it into a board battle. And then the Winnipeg Jets would win 1, 2, 3, 4 board battles in a row to eventually dump it down the ice and make a change, do whatever they had to do. And with that, like the Colorado Avalanche were not able to gain a lot of speed. The Winnipeg Jets were so good at just forcing those board battles. And way back at the beginning of the show, we talked about Alex Iafallo winning that board battle to lead to the Ehlers goal. And it was just when the Winnipeg Jets were doing the right things, they were pushing the Avs to the boards. They were making McKinnon play along the boards, because when the game was in neutral ice, when Makar and Rantanen and McKinnon were allowed to cook in open ice, they just couldn't hang with them. And that's something that's kind of been a consistent thing throughout these matchups. And just finding that weakness that the Colorado Avalanche have, that might not be the same in the playoffs, because you can kind of strategize, you can kind of do more tape over the playoffs because you're focusing on one team. But just the way that the Winnipeg Jets were able to execute on that tonight was just so perfect. There was never a time where you felt like they weren't in control in that third period. A small thing too that I want to talk about, just the penalties. You can't be taking penalties like that. Just brutal. We talked about that during kind of the game breakdown. But with Coughlin, a guy who's in and out of the lineup, that's one you definitely can't take. Kyle Connor, a leader on this team, that's one that you just got to be in control of your stick. And that's not something he does often. He's not a big penalty taker. But it's something where he was struggling a little bit more today. He just wasn't sitting on his stick. And it just sucks that like it also resulted to him taking a penalty. And then another common trend that's been kind of going along with the Winnipeg Jets is they've been having a tough time drawing penalties. And I don't know if this is the type of thing that happens because sometimes the refs don't want to decide the game on special teams, but also, and if that's going to be true, then the Winnipeg Jets power play being as lethal as it is, they might be less inclined to give the Winnipeg Jets a power play based on that fact. But then if that's going to happen, the Winnipeg Jets got to make sure that they don't give the refs easy ones to call against them. Like those two penalties tonight, just blatant high sticks to the face, just lazy penalties. And since those were the only two penalties called, because it's an NHL game, you're telling me everyone played perfectly? No. With those two penalties, you just got to be more disciplined in just having your stick in better places, because I don't think it's a bias thing. I think it's just you can't give the rest easy ones to calls because they kind of have to make those calls when they happen. And especially because the Winnipeg Jets, as good as they've been, they do have a little bit of trouble scoring at 5-on-5. They scored 2 today. They didn't score any yesterday against the LA Kings. I believe I saw a tweet by Nick Lynam that said the Winnipeg Jets are 24th in the league in 5-on-5 goal scoring, which has been a common theme throughout the past 2 years. They do have a little bit of an issue scoring 5-on-5, and it's something where you don't want to see that kind of stretch into the game in the playoffs, because most of hockey itself is played on 5-on-5, and if goals are going to be your auction, if you're going to play like this with the lead, especially the way that they had the trap, they were able to kind of just keep the Avs along the wall. You want to make sure that you can have I guess you always just want to have the lead as much as possible, but you got to be able to also, you got to be able to like establish the lead, but also be able to score your way out of problems. And I hope we can see more of that down the stretch as they kind of have more practice time and are able to work on things. And then one more thing, just Dominic Tominato. Dominic Tominato was in this game. Vladimir Nemestkov was a late scratch. Dominic Tominato comes in. I thought he played pretty well. Like, I mean, he's a AHL call up for a guy who you might have seen Brad Lambert in this game, but he's sick over this weekend. So they didn't really have the opportunity to kind of bring him up, put him in this game. But Dominic Tominato, he came in, he played, he didn't play very much, but you saw him come in, and on that second penalty kill, he played really, really well. He got a nice little cheer from the fans, and it's nice to see, the 15th forward on in this roster, probably 16th, but he's a guy, he came up because you don't want like Shiberkov or someone like that just sitting in the press box, and it's nice to see Dominic Tominato get into a game and have a nice impact on that second penalty kill specifically. All right, we could talk about the middle six shuffle, the way that the lines were kind of put together. I really liked those lines. I thought they worked really well. But I think I'd like to see those lines get some more runway before we kind of see how they shake out, because they were really trying with Perfetti, Lowry, and Ehlers for a little bit. They put Iafallo up there. I think that was a nice change. I think that made it very direct, and I think it made that line just a little bit more complete, if that makes sense. But it was just really nice to see that work out, because they've not changed their lines too much this year. And it was nice to see a combination that kind of worked, that led to a big victory over a big opposing team. But let's go into the third period. In the third period, we're going to be going over our defense of the We're going to go over like the Jets defense, talk about their first 41 games, how they were going into the second half of the season, how well they did in their roles. And let's talk about our other show, Game on Winnipeg, because Game Over has you covered after the game, but in order to get ready to watch the Jets, you've got to get your game on too. Game on Winnipeg is a short-form daily news podcast covering everything you need to know about the Winnipeg Jets, debuting soon. Get all your Winnipeg Jets news in under 10 minutes, Monday through Friday, on the Game Over Winnipeg YouTube channel, and in podcast form, which you can find wherever you get podcasts. You're listening to a live stream on YouTube right now. You can probably find podcasts if you want to find podcasts. Go find the Game on Winnipeg podcast, and also like, comment, and subscribe on this video, because I'm a YouTuber and I got to say those things. All right, period 3. We have our list. We have the list of the Winnipeg Jets defense. I wrote little blurbs. I did this really fast during the game. There might be typos. There might not be. We'll see. But let's go. Let's talk about the criteria for these grades. We're talking about cap hit. Cap hit's included because in order to be efficient as a player on your team, you have to outperform your cap hit. I don't make the rules. I didn't invent the salary cap. I'm reading a book right now called The Franchise, and in that book, Julian Breezewaugh talks about this theory that he has, which before he traded for Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman, he was like, we want to look for players outperforming their cap hit, because that's not only acquiring a great player, but that's also acquiring salary as well. So the way you're performing in a salary cap league, your cap hit is actually a part of that, in my opinion. We're talking about your role on the team. If you have a bigger role on the team, you get criticized more harshly. And we are talking about your gameplay, because that's just kind of what we're doing here. All right, let's start at the top. Josh Morrissey. He's so good. Transition, power play, offense, defense. Josh Morrissey is the best defenseman the Winnipeg Jets have had since Dustin Byfuglien. He's the best defenseman they've had besides Dustin Byfuglien. And he's so good. You remember everything kind of runs through him when he's on the ice. You remember the game against the Predators the day before New Year's Eve, where on the power play they were like, do not let the puck go to Morrissey, and then Morrissey just had to stand there, and they were able to score a goal without him, because he is that much of a kind of a problem for other teams to go with. There's not too much to talk about with him, just because he's so good. He's a number 1 D at $6.25 million. He's a crazy bargain. He gets an A. He's amazing. What does an A+ look like for Josh Morrissey? If he's in like the top 3 Norris conversation, I think that's how you get an A+ in these rankings, is if you're in the kind of talking for awards. Neil Pionk had his best start ever, very much driven by on-ice shooting percentage, but it gave him a lot of confidence. The puck seemed to go in every single time he shot the puck, or one of his passes went on one of his teammates' sticks. It always ended up in the net. And, it gave him a nice confidence boost early in the season to just keep shooting the puck, to keep going for offense. And he's improved at some rush defense this year. You see the way he defended McKinnon tonight. You see the way he's played against other teams, against their fast players on the rush. He's been a lot better at that rush defense, and it's been super nice to see. He's really good at like rotating partners. And yeah, he's good against McKinnon tonight. He's still deceptive. He's still kind of prone to a brain fart. That's just who he is as a player. He's the number 2 guy on this team. I would say Neil Pionk, he gets a B, maybe B+. I think he had such a nice start, and he was playing with some suboptimal partners. I think we'll go B+. Dylan DeMello had kind of a rough start in terms of decision making and puck moving. He wasn't quite himself. Even in terms of like playing on the blue lines, Dylan DeMello's best skill is, since Dustin Byfuglien, we're probably gonna say him a lot because we're talking about with D. Dylan DeMello understands the role of the blue lines better than any defenseman the Winnipeg Jets have had since Dustin Byfuglien. There was a play in the first period of this game where Dylan DeMello was kind of out of the zone, and the Avs were coming up, and there was a loose puck, and he could save it. He could stop it from coming across the offensive blue line. He like dove for it because he understood, man, we got to keep that in. He's starting to look more by himself, but because of his play in the first part of the season, his cap has gone up. I think he gets a C+, which is, you know what, that's pretty good. He does his job. Colin Miller. Colin Miller is a super solid 6D man. They play him like a 5 because they don't really... they play him like a 5. They play him like a little bit higher. I wish they trust him a little bit more on the PK. He'd be in the lineup every game. But right now, he is a kind of just a veteran player. It's nice to have that stability on the back end, and I wish they trust him a little bit more. I'm giving him a C+. Dylan Samberg. Dylan Samberg is a top 4 defenseman who makes $1.4 million. It's incredible. The PK really struggled without him. You see how much it's improved with him. He's so smart. He's a good enough puck mover. Not the best, but he's good for his role. He has so much compete, which makes himself better. He works pretty well with Pionk as well. I'm giving Dylan Samberg a B+. He's really good for that value. Logan Stanley. I don't want to talk about Logan Stanley. It's a boring narrative. Ville Heinola. We'll give Logan Stanley a D. $1.25 million. Ville Heinola, he's had some good games and bad games. There is games where he flat out gets pushed around, but when he's on, he's on. It'd be nice if they gave him a stretch of games to see him with some runway, but because of everything considered, he gets a C-. Hayden Fleury. Hayden Fleury was signed to be like the number 9 guy. I honestly believe the left side was Morrissey, Samberg, Heinola, Stanley coming to the season, and then on the right side, it was DeMello, Pionk, Miller, Coughlin, which led Fleury as the number 9 guy. He came in, injuries made him move his way up. Heinola and Logan Stanley missed a bunch of time in training camp. He had to play a bit over his head this season, but was able to roll with it. I know his fancy stats, his like advanced stats weren't the best when playing with Neil Pionk, but these are my rankings, so these are my feelings that matter. And I'm giving him a B for being able to put into a role that, because I don't even think he was supposed to be in the NHL this year, and he could have drowned, and he didn't. The Jets kept winning, and he played kind of a bigger role in that. And while the Jets, though they weren't always pretty, the wins he was in, he was making very solid plays, and it was just a great signing. I think like league minimum for a guy who came in and just to be a band-aid. Like you talk about just winning, just the way they're able to win, and they don't ask how, they ask how many. And I think when you're kind of holding on to an injury, when you have a bunch of guys injured, you don't really ask, oh, how are the advanced stats on this sort of win? You just say, okay, we won, we're able to withhold this injury, it doesn't matter how we do it. And Hayden Fleury was a big part of that in the middle of the season. Dylan Coughlin's a guy with a skill set like Kyle Capobianco, a nice puck moving guy, and he has the ability to step into the lineup and look like he hasn't missed a step. I like him a lot. He has a lot of nice skills, a really nice puck moving guy, really can skate. He had some really nice puck carries out of the zone where he took the extra 3 steps in order to just kind of make the better breakout pass. Really enjoy that about him. He's been a nice guy that they trade for future considerations. A really nice guy to have around. Dylan Coughlin, just a guy who comes in, plays bottom pairing minutes. He's a bottom pairing defenseman, or he's like a 6-7. He gets a C+. All right, then we go to the goalies. Connor Hellebuyck gets an A+. Connor Hellebuyck is like the league runner, running away with the Vezina Trophy. He is the best goaltender in the league. He's the best player on the team. They keep talking about him like for the Hart Trophy. Hard to disagree. He's absolutely incredible. Connor Hellebuyck gets an A+. Eric Comrie hasn't had a lot of goal support. That's not his fault. He has league average stats, but a part of the job is figuring out a way to win, holding on to a way to win. Is that fair? No, but if you kind of compare what Comrie is doing this year compared to Laurent Brossoit the past couple of years, Laurent Brossoit came in all the time and was able to throw up like a 930, 926, 925. And it's not fair, that kind of comparison, but with Eric Comrie, he comes in and he's played really solid the last few games, but you got to find a way to win. I don't know if that's fair. I don't think it's true. But when you think of like the games he's been this season, he has been prone to the odd weird goal. The game last night, that goal was called off. Not one that counted, but there's been a few weird ones like that. You think back to that Calgary game that he started in, just a few weird goals off the mask. And while I think he's been pretty good, he's had some really nice performances. He gets a C-. I don't think, and which is a passing grade. It's pretty good. And I think maybe we're just used to Connor Hellebuyck when we're describing goaltenders, because is Eric Comrie perfect? No, but Eric Comrie comes in, he gives them exactly what they need. He's a backup goaltender. He has league average stats, and that's pretty good. Like, you really appreciate that from a guy, especially at his cap hit of 8.25. All right, cool. We're about to go into the final period. And with that, that is where you can ask me any questions you would like, anything you want. It can be related to hockey. It can be related to non-hockey things. And while we kind of get into that, while you're typing away your questions that you'd like to ask me, let's talk about what better way to support your community than by rocking it as clothing or drinking out of its official mugs. The Game Over Winnipeg apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs. Whether you feel a nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, or you want to wear your love of goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, or if you just need another coffee to get you through the winter, we have you covered. Designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code on screen now to take a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. And let's see if we have any questions. Will I keep referencing the franchise by Craig Cousins as I'm reading it? No. I gotta stop saying wow. That book is really good. I think with it, I don't want to kind of spoil the whole thing, but I'm kind of taking notes on it to have for the show. I want to kind of pull some philosophies that I think the Jets, in terms of team building, can learn from. They talk to a lot of GMs who have won Stanley Cups, like Brisebois and Brian McClellan, and I think that hearing things from that, hearing stories from those GMs, hearing those insights is just nice as a reflection to fans. And while we're not just talking to Chevy like directly, it's nice to not only hear things that kind of defy the things he seems to do, but things that kind of back up what he kind of thinks. All right, cool. Seems like we have no questions here today. And with that, this has been Game Over Winnipeg. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Brendan Labarre. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe on this video. If you got nothing to say, let me know if you agree with my grades for the Winnipeg Jets defenseman for the first half of the season. The next stream is on Tuesday. Ty will be back, and we'll be doing a crossover with Game Over Vancouver. We have Zach Clark from Game Over Vancouver coming on to Game Over Winnipeg for a wonderful Western Canadian matchup of the Winnipeg Jets and the Vancouver Canucks, who hopefully leave behind Elias Pettersson. Anyways, my name is Brendan Labarre. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.